If sarcasm could kill, my marriage would have died years ago. But here I am, Nate Brewer, 38 years old, sitting in my garage at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, listening to my wife Erica whisper sweet lies into her phone like she's ordering takeout. He's just a safe bet, Lucas. Not exactly thrilling, you know? Safe bet. That's me. Nate the IT manager, Nate the reliable husband. Nate the guy who pays the mortgage on time and remembers to take out the trash. Apparently, I'm also Nate the cuckold, though that's a recent development in my resume. I'd been installing a new workbench when I heard her voice drift through the thin walls separating our kitchen from the garage. She thought I was at my weekly poker game with the guys, but Tommy had canceled last minute due to his kid's fever. Lucky me. I can't keep doing this, Erica continued, her voice dropping to that sultry tone she used to reserve for me. Meeting at your place, then pretending everything's normal when I come home. It's eating me alive. My hands tightened around the wrench I'd been holding. Erica Brewer, my wife of 12 years, ER nurse extraordinaire, the woman who could restart a heart but apparently couldn't keep mine from breaking. No, he doesn't suspect anything, she said, and I could practically hear her rolling her eyes. Nate's too busy with his computers and his little projects. Besides, I told him I'm doing extra therapy sessions to deal with work stress. He actually encouraged it. That hit like a sledgehammer. I had encouraged it. 3 months ago, when she'd been having nightmares about losing patience, when she'd been distant and irritable, I'd suggested she talk to someone. I'd even helped her find Dr. Lucas Brandt, a therapist who specialized in healthcare worker trauma. Turns out, he specialized in other things too. Tomorrow night? Erica's voice perked up. But that's when Nate has his department meeting. Perfect timing. I heard her footsteps moving toward the living room, her voice fading as she continued making plans to betray our marriage. My legs felt like jelly, so I sat down hard on my half-assembled workbench and stared at the concrete floor. 12 years. 12 years of shared dreams, inside jokes, and building a life together. We'd weathered her nursing school, my career changes, her father's death, and my mother's cancer scare. Through it all, I thought we were solid. Boring, maybe, but solid. Apparently, boring was the problem. I pulled out my phone and did what any self-respecting IT guy would do. I started gathering data. Erica's phone was on our family plan, and while I couldn't see her messages without physically accessing her device, I could see call logs and data usage patterns. Over the past 3 months, there had been a significant spike in her phone activity during her supposed therapy appointments. But here's the thing about being married to an ER nurse. You learn to think fast under pressure. And right now, my pressure was building to dangerous levels. The next morning, Erica bounced around the kitchen with suspicious energy, humming while she made coffee. She was wearing her good scrubs, the ones that actually fit properly. And she'd done something different with her hair. You seem cheerful, I observed, keeping my voice neutral while I scrolled through emails on my laptop. Just feeling better about things, she said, not meeting my eyes. Dr. Brandt thinks I'm making real progress. That's great, honey. When's your next appointment? Tonight, actually. I know it's last minute, but he had a cancellation. The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly, I almost admired the craftsmanship. No problem. I've got that department meeting anyway. She kissed the top of my head before heading to work, and I caught a whiff of new perfume. Subtle, but there. Another piece of evidence for my growing file. After she left, I sat in our kitchen, with the backsplash we'd installed together last spring and the coffee maker we'd gotten as a wedding gift, and made a decision that would change everything. I called in sick to work. Then I drove to Best Buy and purchased a small GPS tracker, the kind worried parents use to keep tabs on teenage drivers. It was perfectly legal to track a vehicle I co-owned, and it would give me the data I needed to confirm what I already knew in my gut. Installing it took 5 minutes. The magnetic case attached neatly under Erica's Honda Civic, hidden behind the rear bumper where she'd never think to look. The accompanying app on my phone would show me exactly where my wife went during her therapy sessions. That evening, I sat through the most boring department meeting in corporate history, watching my phone as a little blue dot that represented my marriage moved through the city. First to Starbucks on 5th Street, probably meeting someone before the main event. Then to an address I didn't recognize on the north side of town. I plugged the address into Google Maps when I got home. It was a residential street, nice neighborhood, the kind of place where a successful therapist might live. Dr. Lucas Brandt's home address, according to a quick online search. House calls. How thoughtful. The blue dot stayed there for 3 hours. When Erica came home at 10:15, she looked relaxed in a way that made my stomach turn. Her hair was slightly messed up, and she had that post-workout glow that I recognized from our early dating days. "How was therapy?" I asked from the couch, not looking up from my laptop. "Intense," she said, which was probably the first honest thing she'd said to me in months. "I'm exhausted. Going to shower and head to bed." "Good session then?" "Very productive." She disappeared upstairs, and I heard the shower start running. I opened the GPS tracking app and took screenshots of her route, complete with timestamps and duration of stay. Then I created a new folder on my computer and labeled it Evidence. By the time Erica came downstairs in her robe, I had the beginnings of a comprehensive file. "You coming to bed?" she asked, toweling her hair dry. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. She was still beautiful at 35. Still had that quick smile that had caught my attention at a hospital fundraiser all those years ago. But now I could see things I'd missed before. The way she avoided eye contact, the new confidence in her posture, the slight guilt that flickered across her face when she thought I wasn't watching. "In a few minutes," I said, just finishing up some work stuff. She nodded and headed upstairs, probably relieved to avoid any intimate conversation. I stayed on the couch until I heard her breathing settle into sleep. Then I spent the next 2 hours researching Dr. Lucas Brandt, 40 years old, divorced, 2 kids he saw every other weekend. Graduated from Northwestern, specialized in trauma therapy, with a focus on first responders and healthcare workers. His practice was downtown, but apparently he made house calls for special patients. His professional headshot showed a man with salt and pepper hair and the kind of confident smile that probably made vulnerable women feel understood. His bio mentioned his passion for helping people work through their deepest challenges in a comfortable, supportive environment. I bet he was supportive. By 3 a.m., I had a plan forming. Not revenge, not yet. First, I needed more evidence. Then, I needed to understand exactly how deep this betrayal went. Only after I had all the facts would I decide how to respond. But as I finally headed upstairs to bed, sliding carefully between sheets that smelled like my wife's new shampoo, I realized something had fundamentally shifted inside me. The safe, reliable Nate was still there, but he was sharing space with someone darker. Someone who was very good at planning and very patient about execution. Someone who was about to teach my cheating wife and her therapist boyfriend that boring didn't mean harmless. The next 2 weeks turned me into a surveillance expert. Every morning, I kissed Erica goodbye and wished her a good day at work. Every evening, I tracked her movements through the city like a general studying enemy troop positions. The GPS tracker became my new best friend, feeding me a steady stream of coordinates that painted a picture of my wife's double life. Tuesdays and Thursdays were therapy days, according to Erica's schedule. But according to my little blue dot, she was visiting Dr. Brandt's house every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Sometimes she'd stop at Victoria's Secret first. Sometimes she'd grab coffee at that place on 5th Street where they knew her order by heart. Always, she'd spend between 2 and 4 hours at his house. I started taking longer lunch breaks, driving past Brandt's neighborhood during what should have been normal business hours. His home office was clearly in his house. No separate building, no professional signage. Just a nice 2-story colonial with a BMW in the driveway and my wife's Honda parked beside it every few days. The BMW bothered me more than it should have. It was one of those sleek, expensive models that screamed, successful professional who wants everyone to know it. The kind of car I'd never been able to afford on an IT manager's salary. The kind of car that probably impressed nurses who were tired of their husbands' practical Toyotas. But I had advantages that Dr. Brandt didn't know about. 12 years of marriage had taught me Erica's patterns, her tells, her weaknesses. And 20 years in, it had taught me that information was power, especially when the other guy didn't know you were collecting it. I started with social media. Erica wasn't much of a poster, but she was an active lurker. Her Facebook account showed increased activity during her therapy appointments, likes and comments on friends' posts, as if she was trying to establish an alibi. Clever, but not clever enough. Dr. Brandt, on the other hand, was a social media enthusiast. His Instagram was full of inspirational quotes about healing and growth, interspersed with photos of expensive dinners and weekend hiking trips. Recent posts showed him at restaurants I recognized, places Erica had mentioned trying but claimed were too expensive for our budget. Then I found the smoking gun. Buried in Brandt's LinkedIn connections was Janelle Martinez, Erica's best friend who worked in hospital administration. They'd connected 3 months ago, right around the time Erica started her therapy. A quick cross-reference showed that Janelle had liked several of Brant's Instagram posts, including one from last weekend showing a group dinner at Romano's, the Italian place downtown. Erica had told me she was working a double shift last Saturday. I screenshotted everything and added it to my growing evidence folder. Then I did something that felt like crossing a line, even though technically it wasn't illegal. I started monitoring our joint bank account more carefully. That's when I found the cash withdrawals. $50 here, $75 there. Always on therapy days. Always from ATMs near Brant's neighborhood. Over 3 months, Erica had withdrawn nearly $800 in cash, money that never seemed to make it back into our household budget. I confronted her about it over dinner on a Wednesday night, keeping my tone casual. "Hey, I noticed some cash withdrawals on the bank statement. Everything okay?" Erica barely looked up from her salad. "Just personal stuff. Coffee with Janelle, gas money, you know." $800 worth of coffee? Now she looked at me and I saw a flash of panic before she recovered. I didn't realize it was that much. I've been stressed. Probably not tracking it as well as I should. Maybe we should go back to our old system where we discuss any withdrawals over $50? Nate, I'm not a child. I can manage my own spending money. Her defensive tone confirmed what I already suspected. The cash wasn't for coffee dates. It was for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and whatever other romantic gestures Brant was too cheap or too careful to pay for himself. That night, after Erica went to bed early, claiming a headache, I sat in my home office and stared at my evidence folder. Screenshots, bank records, GPS logs, social media connections. I had enough proof to confront them both. But confrontation felt too simple, too quick. They'd been planning this betrayal for months, lying to my face, spending my money, and turning my marriage into a joke. A simple confrontation would give them the chance to apologize, make excuses, maybe even blame me for being inattentive or boring. I didn't want their apologies. I wanted them to understand what it felt like to have your life systematically destroyed by someone you trusted. The next morning, I called my neighbor Alicia Rodriguez. She was 45, divorced, and had appointed herself the unofficial information hub of our street. If anyone knew the local gossip or could help me gather more intelligence, it was Alicia. "Nate! How nice to hear from you. How's Erica doing? I haven't seen much of her lately." "That's actually what I wanted to talk about. Could I buy you lunch today? I need some advice." We met at Denny's, neutral territory where Alicia could indulge her love of gossip without worrying about neighbors overhearing. I'd prepared my story carefully. Concerned husband, wife acting distant, just wanted to understand if other people had noticed changes. "Oh, honey," Alicia said, leaning forward conspiratorially. I didn't want to say anything, but yes, I've noticed. The new clothes, the different schedule, the way she practically glows when she comes home from those evening appointments. Evening appointments? With her therapist, right? Though I have to say, I've never seen a therapist make house calls in a BMW before. My blood ran cold. "You've seen him?" "Couple of times. Nice-looking man, probably mid-40s, drives that fancy car. He's picked her up twice when her Honda was in the shop. Very attentive, the way he opened her car door and everything. I managed to keep my expression neutral, but inside, I was screaming. He'd been to my house. Dr. Lucas Brant had driven up to my driveway, honked his horn, and picked up my wife for their affair while I was at work. "I'm sure it's nothing," I said carefully. "Erica's been under a lot of stress at work." Alicia patted my hand sympathetically. "Of course, dear. I'm sure you're right. But if you ever need someone to talk to, you know where to find me." I thanked her and drove home, my mind racing. The house calls, the BMW, the cash withdrawals, it all painted a picture of a man who was either incredibly unprofessional or incredibly arrogant. Maybe both. That evening, I made my decision. I was going to end this, but not with a confrontation or a dramatic scene. I was going to destroy them both, systematically and thoroughly, using the same careful planning they'd used to destroy my marriage. First, I needed to gather more evidence. Then I needed to understand their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities, the things they cared about most. And then I was going to take those things away from them, one by one, until they understood exactly what they'd done to me. The safe, boring husband was about to show them just how dangerous a patient man could be. By Friday, I had enough evidence to bury them both, but I wasn't ready to strike yet. I needed to understand the full scope of their deception, which meant figuring out who else knew about the affair. The answer came sooner than expected. I was grabbing lunch at the hospital cafeteria. Erica didn't know I was there. I told her I was in meetings all day. When I spotted Janelle Martinez at a corner table with two other women I recognized from hospital functions. Their conversation was animated, full of the kind of hushed excitement that meant serious gossip was being shared. I bought a sandwich and found a table within earshot, pretending to read emails on my phone while I listened. "She's absolutely glowing," one of the women was saying. "I haven't seen Erica this happy in years." "Well, can you blame her?" Janelle replied, her voice carrying that conspiratorial tone women use when they're sharing secrets. "Have you seen Dr. Brandt? He's gorgeous, and he actually listens to her. When's the last time Nate took her somewhere nicer than Applebee's?" My grip tightened on my phone. Applebee's. We'd gone to Applebee's for our anniversary last year because money was tight after the roof repair. "Still," the third woman said, "I feel bad for Nate. He seems like a nice guy." "Nice and boring," Janelle corrected. "Erica's been dying inside that marriage for years. She deserves some excitement." "What about the ethics thing? I mean, Lucas is her therapist." Janelle waved dismissively. "They're both adults. Besides, the therapy relationship was clearly just a cover anyway. They have real feelings for each other." I sat there, chewing my sandwich like cardboard, listening to my wife's best friend justify her betrayal to a table full of her co-workers. These weren't strangers speculating about gossip they'd heard secondhand. These were people who knew both of us, who'd been to our house for dinner parties and birthday celebrations. They knew, and they were rooting for the affair. After lunch, I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot and called my buddy Mike Thompson. Mike and I had been friends since college, and his wife Sarah had been close with Erica for years. If the gossip had spread to our social circle, Mike would know. "Hey man, what's up?" Mike answered on the second ring. "Just wanted to see if you and Sarah were free for dinner this weekend. It's been too long." There was a pause, the kind of uncomfortable silence that meant bad news was coming. "Actually, Nate, I'm not sure that's a good idea right now." "Why not?" Another pause. "Look, Sarah told me not to get involved, but we know what's going on with Erica, and honestly, we think it might be better if we stayed out of it until you guys figure things out." My chest tightened. "What exactly do you think is going on?" "Come on, man, the therapist thing? We're not stupid. Sarah's been friends with Erica for 8 years, and she's never seen her happier. Maybe you should ask yourself why your wife needed to look elsewhere for what she wasn't getting at home." The line went dead. Mike Thompson, my college roommate, the best man at my wedding, had just hung up on me after basically telling me that my wife's affair was my fault. I sat in that parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at my phone and trying to process what had just happened. It wasn't just that Erica was cheating. It wasn't even that she'd been planning it for months. It was that our entire social network knew about it, approved of it, and had collectively decided that I was the villain in this story, the boring husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. That evening, I tested my theory. I called 3 more couples from our social circle, suggesting dinner plans or weekend activities. The responses were all variations of the same theme: awkward pauses, transparent excuses, and the subtle but unmistakable message that I was no longer welcome in my own friend group. Tom and Jennifer were really busy with work. Dave and Lisa had family obligations every weekend for the foreseeable future. Even my poker buddies seemed to have developed sudden scheduling conflicts. By Sunday night, I'd been effectively excommunicated from 12 years' worth of friendships. Erica, meanwhile, was getting ready for another therapy session, humming in the shower like she didn't have a care in the world. I sat in my home office, staring at my evidence folder, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. They'd all made their choice. My wife, her lover, her friends, my friends. They'd all decided that I was the expendable one in this equation. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Monday morning, I started making calls, not to friends or family, but to professionals. I called a divorce attorney and scheduled a consultation. I called a private investigator to get advice on evidence gathering. I called my bank to understand my options for protecting assets. Then I called the state medical board. I'd like to file a complaint about a therapist who may be engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a patient, I told the intake specialist. Can you provide details about the nature of the relationship? I could indeed. I provided Dr. Lucas Brandt's license number, which I'd found on the state website. I provided dates and times when my wife had visited his home for therapy sessions. I provided bank records showing cash withdrawals that coincided with these visits. I didn't mention that the patient was my wife. I presented myself as a concerned citizen who'd observed suspicious behavior and wanted it investigated. We'll look into this, the specialist assured me. If there's evidence of an inappropriate relationship, Dr. Brandt could face serious consequences, including loss of his license. Perfect. Next, I called the hospital where both Erica and Janelle worked. I asked to speak to someone in human resources about a potential ethics violation. I have reason to believe that one of your employees is involved in an inappropriate relationship with a mental health provider, I told the HR representative. Given that both parties work in healthcare, I thought you should be aware of the potential liability issues. I provided the same evidence, the same dates and times, the same careful documentation. Again, I didn't mention that I was the betrayed husband. I was just a concerned citizen looking out for the integrity of their institution. We take these matters very seriously, the HR rep assured me. We'll launch an investigation immediately. By Tuesday afternoon, I'd filed complaints with 3 different regulatory bodies and provided evidence to 2 separate ethics committees. I'd also retained a divorce attorney and moved half of our joint savings into a separate account, perfectly legal since my name was on everything. Wednesday morning, Erica got a call at work. She came home that evening, looking shaken. "Everything okay?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "Just work stuff. There's some kind of investigation going on, and they want to interview me about a patient relationship." "What kind of investigation?" "Someone filed a complaint about inappropriate conduct." "It's probably nothing, but you know how these things go. Lots of paperwork and meetings until they figure out it's a misunderstanding." I made sympathetic noises while internally celebrating. The wheels were in motion. Thursday. Dr. Brandt called Erica. I could hear his voice through her phone from across the kitchen, tight with stress and barely controlled panic. "We need to talk," he said. "Tonight, my office, not my house." "What's wrong?" "The medical board called. Someone filed a complaint about us. They're launching a formal investigation." Erica went pale. "How is that possible? We've been so careful." "I don't know, but we need to get our stories straight before they start interviewing people." After she left for their crisis meeting, I poured myself a beer and sat on my back porch, watching the sunset and feeling genuinely relaxed for the first time in weeks. They thought they'd been so clever, so careful. They thought the boring husband would never figure it out, and even if he did, he'd just quietly accept his fate and fade into the background. They were about to discover that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous, especially when they've had time to plan. The crisis meeting between Erica and Dr. Brandt must have gone poorly, because my wife came home Friday night looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Her eyes were red, her hands were shaking, and she barely touched the dinner I'd prepared. "Want to talk about it?" I asked, playing the concerned husband perfectly. "It's just work stress," she said, the lie coming out flat and unconvincing. "This investigation thing has everyone on edge." "What kind of investigation?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, as if trying to gauge how much I knew. "Someone complained about a therapist having inappropriate relationships with patients. It's probably nothing, but they have to investigate every complaint." "That's terrible," I said, injecting just the right amount of sympathy into my voice. "I hope it gets resolved quickly." That weekend, Erica was a wreck. She snapped at me over minor things, spent hours on the phone with Janelle, and kept checking her email obsessively. Dr. Brandt called twice, conversations that sent her into the bathroom with the door locked for 20 minutes each time. Sunday evening, she finally cracked. "Nate, I need to tell you something." I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been pretending to work while actually monitoring the GPS tracker that showed her Honda hadn't left our driveway all weekend. "What's on your mind?" She sat down across from me at the kitchen table, her hands folded in front of her like she was praying. "I haven't been completely honest with you about my therapy sessions." "Oh?" "Dr. Brandt and we've developed feelings for each other. It started as a professional relationship, but it became something more." I stared at her, letting the silence stretch until she started fidgeting. "You're having an affair." "It's not that simple. He really understands me, Nate. He listens to me in a way that you haven't in years." There it was, the blame shift I'd been expecting. Somehow her betrayal was my fault for not being attentive enough. "How long?" I asked. 3 months. "But Nate, you have to understand." 3 months. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. 3 months of lying to my face, spending our money on hotel rooms and letting our friends think I'm some kind of inadequate husband who drove you into another man's arms. Her face went white. How do you know about the hotel rooms, the cash withdrawals, the fact that Janelle and half the hospital staff think this is some kind of romantic love story? I pulled out my phone and showed her the GPS tracking app. I know everything, Erica. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you came home and pretended to care about our marriage while you were planning your next rendezvous. She stared at the screen, showing 3 months' worth of tracked locations, her mouth opening and closing, like a fish. You've been tracking me? I've been protecting myself. Good thing, too, since apparently everyone we know thinks I'm the bad guy in this situation. Nate, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been sleeping with your therapist for 3 months? That you've been stealing money from our joint account to fund your affair? That our friends all know and think I deserve it because I'm boring? Tears started streaming down her face, but I felt nothing. The woman sitting across from me had systematically destroyed our marriage while playing the victim, and now she wanted sympathy for getting caught. I never meant for it to happen, she whispered. But you kept letting it happen every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for 3 months. You know about the schedule? I know about everything, including the fact that Dr. Brandt is about to lose his license for having sexual relationships with patients. Her head snapped up. What are you talking about? The investigation at the hospital? The medical board complaint? That was me, Erica. I filed those reports. The color drained from her face completely. You couldn't have. You didn't know. I've known for weeks. I've been documenting everything, building a case, and systematically destroying both of your careers while you thought you were being so clever. She stood up so fast her chair fell over. You bastard! You've ruined everything! I ruined everything? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You're the one who decided our marriage wasn't worth fighting for. You're the one who chose to lie and cheat and steal. I just made sure there were consequences. Lucas could lose everything. His practice, his license, his reputation. Good. He should have thought of that before he started screwing married patients. And what about me? What about my job? What about it? You're the victim of an unethical therapist who took advantage of your vulnerability. That's the story you're going to tell, isn't it? Poor Erica, manipulated by the big bad doctor. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Who are you? This isn't the man I married. You're right. The man you married was a trusting fool who believed his wife when she said she loved him. But that man is gone, Erica. You killed him when you decided that boring and safe weren't enough. My phone rang. Mike Thompson's name appeared on the screen. Answer it, I told Erica. I want you to hear this. I put the call on speaker. Nate, man, I owe you an apology. Mike's voice filled the kitchen. Sarah just told me what really happened. We had no idea that therapist was taking advantage of Erica like that. We thought, well, it doesn't matter what we thought. We were wrong to cut you out. Erica's mouth fell open. Thanks, Mike, I said, keeping my voice steady. It's been a difficult time. Is Erica okay? Sarah's worried about her. This whole thing with the medical board investigation must be traumatic. She's dealing with it. I think she's finally starting to understand that she was manipulated by someone she trusted. If you guys need anything, just let us know. We're here for both of you. I hung up and looked at Erica, who was staring at me with a mixture of horror and admiration. You turned them against him, she whispered. I told them the truth. Dr. Lucas Brandt used his position of authority to seduce a vulnerable patient. That's what happened, isn't it? You know it wasn't like that. Prove it. Explain to the medical board how a licensed therapist ending up in a sexual relationship with a married patient he was treating for work-related trauma isn't a massive ethics violation. Explain to your HR department how this was just true love and not a predatory professional taking advantage of someone in crisis. She sank back into her chair, the fight going out of her. What do you want from me? I want you to pack your things and get out of my house. I want you to sign whatever divorce papers my attorney puts in front of you, and I want you to disappear from my life as completely as you've already disappeared from our marriage. Where am I supposed to go? I hear Dr. Brandt has a nice house. Oh wait, he probably won't once his ex-wife finds out about the ethics investigation and sues for back child support. You're destroying innocent people. I'm not destroying anyone. I'm just making sure that actions have consequences.
You and your therapist boyfriend made choices, and now you get to live with the results.
She sat there crying for a few more minutes while I went back to my laptop. Finally, she stood up and walked toward the stairs. I'll need a few days to find a place. You have until tomorrow night. After that, I'm changing the locks. She turned back to look at me one more time. I did love you, Nate. I still do in my own way. No, you don't. You love the security I provided, the comfortable life, the safety net, but you never loved me enough to honor the promises you made or respect the life we built together. And now? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Now you get to find out what life looks like without that safety net.